Hey everyone, Mick here, and welcome to The Art of Dirt, Chapter 3, Episode 2. We're going to dive now into what the makeup of soil is using one of these things. Josh, what is this?
It's called a sieve. Ta-da. Or a big black round box. No, this is a sieve. So each one of these pans with these numbers corresponds to a screen with that type of opening. So, for instance, number 5, is that what that said?
Yep.
Number 5 has about a little less than a 1/4 inch opening. So you can see the screen here. And as you go down these things, each screen gets finer and finer. So here's a number 10. So you can see the opening difference. They're just a little bit smaller. And then as each one goes down, go all the way down to 230. So that's a 200 sieve. Very fine opening, especially compared to what you start with. So when you're analyzing soil, you can put your soil through these and determine how much of each type of soil you have. So these bigger ones, of course, are going to be gravel, right? So if you were to dump this bag of rocks in here, they're all going to sit on the top of here, and it's all consistent, 1.25 inch rocks. Whereas when you dump something in like this, you can see there's some rocks here, and then you have a bunch of finer material here. Well, how much finer material do we have? So when we want to know that, we use this tool called the Sieve Analysis.
Just because I like things to be somewhat.
Line up all the numbers. It's important to line up the numbers.
So, when you're doing this, we would weigh the material first, right?
Yeah, so the first step of doing a sieve analysis is to weigh your material. And then the second step would actually be to dry the material and then weigh it again. And then you can know how much moisture content came in that bag. If we were using these sample bags, these are excellent little sample. These are the, not the Ziploc kind, because those cost more. These are the cheap sandwich bags. But use one of these, and you can take a sample of soil, wind it up like that, and you can take it to a lab to have tested. It'll pretty much maintain the moisture content that you collected it with. So the first step is to weigh it, dry it out, weigh it again, then you know how much moisture, how much water was in that soil. And that's what you want to do before you start your sieve analysis. You don't want to run wet material through these because it'll just clog up your screens. So, and then the second step, we already have some dried soil that Mick collected from
somewhere around
off the side of the road where he had a potty break. So we're going to use this soil. You know, show it on camera there before we start.
Yeah. So here we go. Here we got some material I dug up out of the ground, coming on over to the west side of the mountains here. So for if you're going out into the field and you're just going to do this, obviously you're not going to weigh it and everything probably, but you're just going to use it mainly just to see what you're working with, right?
Yeah, so this is a good tool to see, hey, is my soil mostly sandy or is it mostly silty? Does my soil have a lot of gravel or does it have all clay? So this would be a good tool to just analyze that. So if you're going out in the field to do that, though, you would want to take, a number 50 or number 60 and probably this 100, 120 sieve and the pan. Those would probably be the only two that I would take. Everything greater than this is going to be a coarse sand to gravel, and everything less than this is going to be silt or clay. So you could determine how much sand gravel content you have versus silt, just in a rough estimate. So if you wanted to take this out in the field to do a check, that's a great way to do it. Or take a sample in a little bag like this, throw it in your pack, and then take it home or to a lab where you have one of these sieve analysis machines, and you can do that. So, but for just hanging out on the farm, we're going to show you how to do this. So Mick's pouring the soil in to get this started. You can fill it up pretty good. So when you do this in a lab, there's a machine that'll shake it for you. But since we don't have that, I'm going to let Mick do the honors. It's a commercial. It's a commercial, Mick.
Commercial.
Shake weight. There you go.
Yeah, but we're not supposed to shake it like this.
You don't
right?
want to. All right, so when you're shaking this, you don't want to shake it up because you're wanting all the soil and rocks and silt to go down. So if you're shaking it straight up, then those will be bouncing up to your screen. And then when you stop shaking, they might still be stuck on the screen above where they shouldn't be. So yeah, you just kind of want to shake it a little sideways, give it a little tap, and kind of shake it down. As long as you're not really like going too large. It's more of a vibration.
How long, like, if you were putting this on the machine, how long would you run it for?
Well, there are test methods that identify that. ASTM, I don't remember the number, but ASTM has a specified time. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it's like 2 to 5 minutes or something like that. That it would shake. And that's to say that is enough time for everything to settle out exactly. For trail building purposes and for what we're doing, let's say a minute. A minute would be a good amount of time. And we didn't do the same amount of soil that those typically do. When you do this with ASTM, it'll tell you you have to use a minimum of this weight of soil, right? Because if we only put in, let's say I dumped in that much, and then I want to do an analysis. Well, that's not going to be a good judge of an average soil content.
Yeah. So, like, we'll probably ask you.
So you still have 30 seconds. Keep shaking. I'm joking. We're probably good.
All right.
So now I'll show you what this has done. So we showed you the before of the soil, which it looked exactly like this. So you can see the soil all mixed up, right? So now each one of these screens separates the soil.
So here we have
this is our gravel. So we're going to say this is our gravel content. And say a medium gravel almost. And so, of course, we didn't have a larger screen. These would have been separated out on a larger screen. And then the next one, you're going to have some more gravel. So this would be a fine grain gravel. And you can see all these they're very consistent and fine grain. A couple of roots came in there, but yep. And then we'll just keep getting finer and finer as we go.
So I'll just keep shaking it.
So now we're down to sand. So this is like a medium to coarse grain sand. And you can feel it when you grab this. I don't know if I'm holding on the camera right. When you grab this and you rub it with your hand, you can feel the coarseness. It's like sandpaper. And as you get finer,
now we're at what? This is
60. This is going to be a fine grain sand, and you can see just look it in the pan. Let me see if I can do this right. Just look it in there. You can tell that's a fine grain. Looks like a beach sand almost, and it still feels granular. And it's kind of nice. I like the feeling of dirt. This is why I specialize in dirt. I like to see it.
So that technically would be fine grain would stay between. So it's smaller than a 35, number 35, but larger than a 60.
Mm-hmm.
So
and then once you drop past there, then you start getting into the siltier materials. So this one is probably going to be a mixture of fine grain, super fine grain sand, and starting to get some silt in it, some larger silt particles. You can still feel a little bit of granular material in there, but it's very fine powdery. And as you go below that, now we're in the pure silt, almost clay. So this is very, very, and I would say this is all silt. This I can just tell you, I've done this a long time. There's not a lot of clay in this. But yeah, the silt, and it's just powder. It feels like talc powder or like a baby powder.
And so that's a 230. So anything past a 230
should be essentially, be classified as clay or like a super fine grained silt. And this stuff, you can't even, it's softer than flour. So it's just the super fines out of the soil. And you can just see how it's just powder. And it leaves a little residue dust on your hands. So, yeah. And so that is a sieve analysis. So to recap, for building trail, what's going to be important numbers for you to know on your sieve analysis is how much sand, gravel, and silt content you have. And that's what's going to determine how well that soil is going to compact, how well it's going to help hold moisture or allow moisture to flow through it. so this, number 50 to 60 sieve is what I use to tell a lot, and that way you can tell how much sand is in there. Anything below this, it starts to get really fine grained, and is not going to allow water to drain out of that soil very well.
I can tell you this soil drains really good.
Oh yeah, rest stop where he collected it. So, next episode we should talk about water, because that's would be the next obvious thing, is to know how this soil is going to be affected when you add water to it.
All right. So, some sieve analysis of some soil. Just a quick recap. What would you consider this be good soil to build trail on?
Oh yeah, this is definitely, with the amount of sand that came out of this sieve and the amount of gravel we had above it, this is excellent soil and be really easy to compact with a little bit of moisture. So this wouldn't even take that much moisture to make it compactable. So yes, good soil to build a trail out of.
Awesome.
And the other determining factor on that was how much showed up on this fines. So for how much soil we dumped in that thing, this is all the fines that actually came out of it.
Yeah, all this. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of learning a little bit more about what makes up soil. Obviously, soil is different for everywhere you go. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up, and until next time.